Leader Abrams, first off, thank you so much for sparing what I'm sure is a big chunk, an important, critical chunk of your time with us. We appreciate you being on this afternoon. And first off, just to kind of loosen things up here on COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of progress here. How would you assess the governor's job in rolling out this vaccine distribution plan for Georgia? Is there anything you would do differently?
I believe that planning is important, but I'm always going to focus on what it looks like in actuality. And so I think we should reserve judgment until we see the plan in practice.
There are people who might question the vaccine's effectiveness. We're seeing, especially in minority communities, there are some questions and concerns. Some people wary about taking a vaccine. How do you think is the best way to boost confidence?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge the legitimacy of skepticism given the historical legacies that we've had in this country. That said, we want every person who can be protected to be protected, and that's going to come about with transparency, with an authentic engagement of communities, and the willingness to answer their questions. I believe that we are on the cusp of being able to start to really address this pandemic, but we have to make certain that people believe and trust, and that's going to require that we have leadership like we're seeing from President-elect Joe Biden and the former presidents who've all said that they're willing to stand up and defend and support the rollout of this vaccine.
What kind of leadership is necessary for Georgia to see from the top down that this is, an effective vaccine, and that vaccine gets to the people who need it and need it most?
Again, I would look to not only the distribution plan that Governor Kemp has laid out, but actually how it rolls out. We have seen plans go awry before, and so the best way to instill confidence in Georgians is to be transparent with information, transparent with planning, and transparent when there are mistakes or challenges. People will believe you when you say you're sorry if they believed you when you said your intentions were good.
All right. I want to shift now to the political side of things. First off, what's keeping you busy right now? What fills your days?
Well, we have these two Senate elections that are barreling towards January 5th. I'm proud of the campaigns being run by Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. I'm more proud, though, of the voters who are showing up. 1.2 million absentee ballots have been requested. We know that 85,000 of those requests come from people between the ages of 18 and 29 disproportionately, and disproportionately from people of color. These are people who did not vote in the general election. That means that there is an enthusiasm, but there's also a hunger for action. And we know that only Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are willing to stand up to Mitch McConnell and his obstructionism. Unfortunately, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue have done nothing to push back on Mitch McConnell's refusal to disperse COVID relief dollars. And we need those in Georgia. 160,000 Georgians face eviction. 4.1 million job loss claims have been filed in our state. 1 in 4 small businesses have failed in the state of Georgia during the pandemic. Those are all things that we should have 2 U.S. senators fighting tooth and nail with or against their party to deliver relief. And unfortunately, COVID relief has not been the priority for Mitch McConnell, for David Perdue, or for Kelly Loeffler. And instead, Perdue and Loeffler have profited from this pandemic and have not served the people.
These are all areas that affect each and every one of us directly and indirectly, as you mentioned. Early voting starting tomorrow. You mentioned the thousands of newly registered voters that the Secretary of State has also acknowledged. A lot of these folks are younger voters, many who turned 18. What role do you expect them to play in historically the type of race, runoffs, that don't generally see huge turnout?
Well, we know this is a singular election. We have 2 U.S. Senate seats on the line in Georgia, but we also know that this is about how we create balance in the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate needs 2 representatives from the state of Georgia who are willing to work across the aisle, but more importantly, work with the new president of the United States to deliver good for the people of America, especially the people of Georgia. We have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. We have seen job losses. We have seen business closures. We know that 2 of our top industries, the restaurant business and tourism, have been devastated by COVID-19. And we need 2 US senators who are going to fight for Georgia, not fight for Mitch McConnell, not fight for Donald Trump, but fight for Georgians who need relief. And we believe that young people understand this more than anyone because they have careened from first the Great Recession and now to the COVID pandemic. And at the age of 18, between 18 and 29, they understand their voices matter and their voices can change the future.
Joe Biden turned Georgia blue. You nearly did the same thing 2 years ago. How confident are you that Georgia can turn pretty much every federally elected office in the national spotlight blue?
I believe that we are in prime position. We have been investing not only up and down the state of Georgia, we are investing in every community. We are investing in culturally competent outreach, knowing that in Hall County, there's a very large Hispanic population that's being disenfranchised because they've cut the number of early voting locations. We're fighting hard to restore them. We know that in Forsyth County, we have a large Asian American population that's losing access to early voting sites, and we're fighting to restore those. But more than anything, we are working in coalition with organizations that are defending the right to vote and reminding Georgians of their power. The power that we demonstrated back in November, we can do it again, but we've got from December 14th till January 5th to get it done. And we encourage everyone to bank their votes early, make a plan to vote early, bank your vote so you can focus on the holidays. And to get more information, go to peachvote.com or iwillvote.com to get it done.
You know, speaking of the holidays, we saw more than 1 million people registered to vote absentee during the general election, already on pace to, possibly surpass that number. With the holiday season, a lot of things going through the mail right now. How confident are you in the Postal Service and all that's involved to manage that large volume of votes again?
We know that the weaponization of the Postal Service during the general election had not only a chilling effect on the delivery of absentee ballots, but had a chilling effect on confidence. What we're hoping is that Georgians saw the success of 1.3 million applicants for absentee ballots, those votes coming back and changing the course of history for Georgia. But we're also encouraging folks to understand that to make a plan, you need to know what all the options are. You can vote mail-in by going to peachvote.com and requesting your ballot, making sure that you also find out where the drop boxes are in your county. You can vote early in person for 3 weeks in Georgia, starting on Monday, December 14th. And of course, you can vote on Election Day, January 5th. We know that there will always be challenges to voting, but the work that we do at Fair Fight and the work being done by so many organizations is to defend that right to vote and make certain that every eligible Georgian has the ability and the right to cast their ballots.
You all at Fair Fight and other third-party organizations, even parties at the local level, we've all seen this big push to educate voters, to get them registered. There's been some criticism though thrown your way and third parties' way about the data. Is it bad data that you're using to send these mailers, phone calls, whatever you want to, what kind of medium to message? Are you using bad data, sending these addressed to deceased people? Secretary of State mentioned his own son, to people who don't even live in the state anymore. Does that increase the likelihood of fraud?
Fraud is not an issue in Georgia, and we've seen multiple cases, legal cases brought by the President of the United States and by others, and they have all been summarily rejected because there is no fraud in Georgia. However, we need to understand that often these third parties get their information from the Secretary of State's office. There might be other third-party sources, but the Secretary of State's office is one of the purveyors of this information. We believe that the issue is making sure you do as much outreach as possible. If someone is not eligible to participate in the elections, they will not be allowed to do so if the Secretary of State's administration of elections works the way it should. But we should not preclude anyone from having access to opportunity and access to information.
There have also been some criticisms thrown your way over the contesting of the 2018 gubernatorial race, comparing that to Republicans refusing to concede the presidential race this year. What is the comparison? Is there a fair comparison in your eyes?
The comparison is nonsense. First and foremost, I never contested the outcome of the election. My contest and the contests that were filed in that 10-day period were designed to make certain that every eligible ballot cast got counted and it worked. In 4 different lawsuits, courts agreed with us that people were being denied the right to have their votes counted. I never once filed a contest to change the outcome of the election on my behalf. And in fact, I acknowledged the legal sufficiency of that election. What I challenged was a system that allowed thousands of Georgians to be disenfranchised. And we were successful in that challenge. We have seen multiple changes made to our systems. The neutering of the exact match system, the inclusion and expansion of access to polling places, the fact that people who had minor mistakes or had challenges with their absentee ballots or their provisional ballots, having a uniform rule in the state of Georgia to cure those mistakes. The contrast with Donald Trump and the Republicans, they are trying to restrict whose voices get heard. They are contesting an outcome because they don't like the fact that Georgians got to vote and Georgians were heard. There is absolutely no comparison. I refuse to concede an illegitimate system. And what has happened is that the system has gotten better because of the work done by myself and other organizations. And that should be to the betterment of all Georgians.
Leader Abrams, what do you make of the Secretary of State's proposals? He named a couple of them to kind of shore up the election system. One of those was allowing the state to actually intervene in some problem counties, counties that had seen numerous issues at the polls and administering their elections, such as Fulton County. And then the other was proposing a photo ID match, some sort of way to bolster absentee voting security.
Well, I would challenge the Secretary of State to either demonstrate that there was a problem or to stop trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. Either we had a secure election, which is what he has touted in the Wall Street Journal and on every major television station, or we haven't. Republicans created this system. They were the ones who expanded access to absentee voting in 2005. They were the ones who recognized that in a state as large as Georgia, that it made sense to maintain multiple opportunities for casting your ballots. And they enjoyed that system. They praised that system until more voters started using that system. And so there's something deeply cynical about trying to change a system because you don't like the outcome. My mission has always been very clear: to make certain that every eligible voter who wants to cast a ballot can do so regardless of party. As for the intervention, what we have argued from the very beginning and what we saw happen this year is that when our counties are well resourced and when the elections officials are well trained, we can get a good election. It is the Secretary of State's job to do that work. There should be no need for intervention there should be no need for intervention in the aftermath of an election if you did the work on the outset of providing the responsible training and investment that the Secretary of State is constitutionally obliged to perform.
Do you ever feel like the constant messaging, the barrage of ads, the mailers, the phone calls, do you feel like it might desensitize voters from showing up to either vote early or even participate at all in the runoffs?
I think there may be a moment when that happens, but we have to remember Georgia is just entering the process of being an actively contested state. If you look at the campaign in 2018 and this campaign, this is the first time we've really had a two-party system with very active investment on both sides. And I think it's a good thing for Georgia that we are seen as a bellwether state and investment is being made. But what we should be concerned about is the influence of outside money that is used only to tell lies and to propagate propaganda. I am deeply disturbed and, in fact, very, very disappointed in the behavior specifically of Kelly Loeffler, who sat in the pulpit of Ebenezer Baptist Church and praised Raphael Warnock. And now she is being deeply disingenuous, not only about who he is, but about the context of what he said. She knows better. She knows that she is not telling the truth and that she is misconstruing what he said. And so my deep concern is that when we not only invest our dollars in pushing out lies, but we do so in a way that does not allow us to have a space for truth, we are diminishing the importance of these jobs. We need leaders who tell the truth, and we need leaders who stand up and speak up for the people they represent.
Some Republicans have been split. Let's set the record straight over this runoff. Some are calling for people not to even vote because they don't have confidence in the system to support their votes. Others say show up and show out. How do you think this type of conflict impacts the Ossoff and Warnock camps?
I know that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are focused on turning out every Georgia voter because they know that if Georgia voters are paying attention, if they are feeling the pain of COVID-19, if they know that their lives and their livelihoods are at stake and that there has been remarkable inaction on the part of Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, they know that they have to tell the truth and turn out voters. I believe in the right to vote, and I believe that every Georgian should take advantage of their ability to participate in our elections. It is always sad to me when we see people who are willing to lie to change who participates. And so what I would encourage everyone to do, especially those who want to see real relief and real leadership, please show up on December 14th for early voting starting on Monday. Please make a plan to vote early by going to peachvote.com or iwillvote.com and do what you can to participate in this election because we are setting the course of our nation.
All right, I just have a couple more questions here. You've laid a lot of the groundwork out for Democrats in Georgia. We're 2 years out. Do you plan to run for governor again?
I am focused on making certain that we have free and fair elections in Georgia on January 5th and that we elect two champions of democracy, champions of justice, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock.
And after that?
After that, I'll figure out what's next.
Okay. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms declined a cabinet position in the Biden administration this weekend. Has the Biden administration offered you a role or position? What role, if they have, and what are the factors that you would consider?
My focus is on making certain that we send 2 U.S. senators to Washington, D.C. That's the D.C. focus I have right now, and that's making sure that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are elected to represent the great state of Georgia and to deliver the kind of support and leadership we need to get Georgia back on track.
So the administration has not offered you a role?
I'm focused on making sure that the D.C. conversation I'm having is about sending 2 U.S. senators from the state of Georgia to Washington, D.C.
All right, Leader Abrams, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and best of luck to you.
Thanks so much, Joe. Have a good day.
Stay safe. You too. That's all a message about.